I am here with Chris Schowalter from Fiery. And I was so fortunate that last week, when it was announced that Fiery became its own entity, I happened to write to Chris and asked him, so how is it? And he said, I saw that you will be at Cprint, so maybe you can do an interview with me. And here I am. Chris, great to see you.
Pleasure as usual. Good to see you again.
The last time I talked to you a little bit in details about Fiery, it's, you know, I'm not saying anything bad, but it sounds so often that the Fiery has always been kind of its own within the EFI thing.
Yeah, it's funny, you know, I mean, we get actually asked by a lot of customers in the past, kind of at what point did EFI acquire Fiery? And if you think about it from an historical standpoint, it's really the other way around. I mean, Fiery was the start of it all, and now it's kind of full circle back and we're Fiery again. You know, to be honest, that was actually before my time. I'm with the company now since 12 years. But there was always this really, really strong Fiery identity. So, yeah.
And with the exciting thing, I think it's actually quite exciting because, I mean, the same way as we saw with e-productivity last year becoming like a well-funded with a lot of customer startup, you are again becoming almost like a startup with a well-funded economy and a lot of ideas for the future. We spoke to your boss, Toby Weiss, who's now the CEO at the last Connect. I mean, I know that you may not know, but what is your dreams of what is going to happen with Fiery as an independent company?
It's super interesting. First of all, Toby is actually my boss's boss, but he's so approachable, right? Which is so nice for all of us. So we are very, very happy to have him to lead the ship. And yeah, that's a big question. I mean, for us, we're independent now, right? We're one Fiery, and we can focus exactly on what we want to do and where we want to develop. And in all reality, we're the biggest rib manufacturer, independent rib manufacturer on the planet. So the sky is the limit, and it's really the absolute opposite of what we see the industry doing, right? Because we don't like to call it rib. I mean, we are DFE and workflow and all that, but end of the day, the ribs are kind of disappearing and they get gobbled up. And for us, it's the difference. We're reappearing, and we're suddenly here. So we want to focus on our customers. That's what it's all about.
But that is, of course, very nice, and I want to talk to you about that in a second. But just before we get to that, I can't help think about, because as I said to you yesterday, I interviewed some of the founding members of the EFI development team, and basically even the Fiery was a byproduct of what they wanted to do. I don't know if you're aware of it, but the first kind of product they wanted to do was, they called it color. I forgot the right name.
You know more than me anyway.
Yeah, but it was funny because it was actually before color management thought of as a color management system, right? And the reason why Fiery got thinking, how can you output something from a screen if you can't see it on paper, right? And now we're getting back to it. And the reason why I mentioned this is just because when we spoke to Toby Weiss at the last Connect in 22, it seems to me that the very idea of having a rib and having a digital front end is extending beyond what we started with just having a regular print on paper, right?
Yeah. I mean, what we're seeing is obviously there's a multitude of rib vendors, and they're all really, really good vendors, right? And rib, I mean, it's not a commodity. It's very important what we do, performance, color, etc. But we want to and we need to do more, right? It's about workflow, it's about integration, it's about the automation and reducing the touch points. I mean, what we've seen in offset, etc., for a really, really long time, the wide and super wide guys are experiencing as well. They need to automate. The margin pressure is there, and obviously times are a little bit challenging, which, frankly speaking, is a good time for automation, because I have time to do it and I need to cut costs.
And it's also difficult to get labor, so therefore, I mean, it fits the bill basically. Right?
Yeah, and the crazy part is, I mean, the bigger the machine gets, kind of the lower the labor skill actually becomes, because you're busy just feeding paper and ink. So we need to help the operator, and we need to move critical operations away from the printer. And the Fiery sits, I mean, in this case here, sits inside the printer, but the software can be on the printer and can also be installed somewhere else. But we want to move operations away from the printer and then seamlessly integrate to the printer. So basically here, I can click print and it flows.
One of the things I can't help think about, the RIP is, I mean, for those who don't know, it's an essential part because it's a raster imaging processor, basically making sure that you have bits and balls that turns into dots, right? I was just wondering, the inkjet revolution that we see right now also in commercial print and packaging, things like that, is that a market that you have grabbed also with the Fiery technology?
We are spread crazy wide, right? I mean, from an historic standpoint, the Fiery XF product line, our inkjet rip solution, was an acquisition as well. So we actually come from a best color days, so our blood per se is inkjet proofing. So we play in that space, then we do inkjet production, UV printing, we do ceramics, we do textile, and interesting enough, right here you can see also the DTF space, right? That's a fairly new space for us, which we, covering with an acquisition as well. So we're going after all the digital, not only inkjet, because I mean, our DNA is toner or laser, so going after all the digital operations.
But that basically means that, I think that, I mean, first of all, it means that even though that you today have like about 60% market share, it still means to me that it sounds like you have a huge growth opportunity, right? And one thing I want to add to that, and maybe you can answer the question in combined, is that when EPS or e-productivity was separated out, one of the first things that a guy like Nick Benkovic really appreciated was the ability to now to work with more vendors, because now it was like not a competitive situation. Is it the same when it looks at Fiery? I mean, does it also give you new opportunities being an independent company?
It's kind of a two-stage process. A couple of years ago already, we kind of changed the mindset. I mean, we always developed, or we always had a lot of innovation, and we tried to kind of keep this innovation for, quote, our own products. And a couple of years ago, we changed this mindset, sorry, and we want to lead with value and not limitation. So Fiery was, since multiple years, completely open, completely integratable via JDF. We support over 2,000 different printers, so quote, all the competitive printers as well. Frankly speaking, some of them probably did or did not want to talk with me, right? So being an independent Fiery and the strongest player on the market makes me certainly very, very interesting for other hardware vendors as well. With that said, I mean, EFI, it's funny for me to say this, EFI is obviously my preferred partner, and we're very excited to continue to work with them.
Interesting, right? Chris, your role with Fiery, has that changed, or what are you doing, and what will you continue to be doing?
Fiery, EFI, and now Fiery has been, crazy supportive to me. I started product marketing, I did brochures and web pages, then I did product management. Since 2 years, I'm doing sales. For me, my role has not changed with the split of Fiery and EFI, but it did actually change January 1st, because of the new space that we go into, the DTF and textile space, and that expanded my product line and my team. So that's rather nice, and it's also how we see that Fiery invests into those niche or growth markets in the inkjet space.
So from a personal perspective, it sounds like a lot of interesting challenges in the future, right?
Interesting challenges in the future. I'm having tremendous amount of fun. I'm in a crazy state. I just built a house. I have double the amount of team members, double the amount of products, so I'm a little bit floating, but that's part of the fun. I mean, we talked about this before. I mean, EFI or Fiery, doesn't matter. If you like change, this is a tremendous company, and you can build your own career, and they're crazy supportive. So I'm very happy.
Fantastic. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.